Hi, my name is Duwenavue Santé Johnson, and I am a person of color, and I refer to myself as BIPOC, which stands for Black Indigenous People of Color. Historically saying, you could say that my family on both sides came here as the first colonialists in America, in North America. And within those colonialists, there was an African American or an African presence. My family has always been very traditional and pretty conservative. Both sides were settlers in Maryland and in Massachusetts. And surprisingly, both sides of the family, over a 400-year period, they went west. So I was born and raised in California, and I lived on the Central Coast in California, and I also lived in San Francisco, where I spent most of my young adult life. I spent my time either on the beach, in a city, or rurally in the countryside. As a child, I traveled with my parents while they were on assignment. And so I was able to spend a lot of time in a lot of different countries. This background and being able to see different perspectives, people, environments allowed me to broadly create a world for myself. Everyone in my family is a musician. My mother is a blues singer and a gospel singer, and my stepfather, he is a blues guitarist. My biological father is a classical guitarist. Growing up in a musical family allowed me a lot of space in my life. There was always music going on in the house, and we had a recording studio in the house, so on the weekends there were always a lot of people coming to the house performing music. So most of my time I spent looking at things, exploring things, doing a sort of research, imaginary research, and coloring, creating stories, reading. I wasn't really good at reading until I was older, but most of the time I just really focused on, my inside of my mind and what I saw outside and ways to connect to the outside world. I've always loved patterns, colors, and textures and arranging them in a way that creates a harmony and balance. I think it's related to the fact that I listen to music so much. I felt like I was doing the same sort of thing with shapes and colors and patterns that a musician would be when they're performing a piece of music. My upbringing definitely impacted me on how I see the world and create art. I grew up with both my grandparents and my parents, and my grandparents, they were very traditional, while my parents were more of a artist type. And I think what happened, or how I approach my life now, is that in some compartmentalized part of myself, I'm very organized and I'm very structured. And then there's another part of my life where I'm pretty chaotic and scattered. And I think that due to like the environment and society and the world at large, that fragmented nature of the world at large, I'm always playing with the contrast between structure and non-structure, and I'm always looking for ways to build bridges between the two sides of my understanding, and also to create a sort of movement and a flow and some kind of dynamic that will be of a positive nature. I think as a kid, in some ways I'm pretty lucky in the sense that I was always connected to my inner world, and I didn't really pay a lot of attention to um, to my class, to my culture. I didn't really think about if I had more or less than somebody else. Mostly, I was thinking about if I saw a color that I like, or I saw a dress or something that I liked. I wanted to know how I could obtain that in my life. If I was someone who was I needed to touch things, so I always wanted to like see how things felt. So when I think of my childhood and think about, what really affects my work today related to myself as a child, I see myself very driven to understand color, shapes, lines, patterns, and how they work and they don't work in society, and how, because of things related to those colors and patterns and dynamics, they bring in certain kind of emotions or experiences into your space. So, for example, if I was in a situation that was very angry and aggressive, I would feel those colors, or I would feel that tenseness, which would, resonate in me in a certain sort of way that I would not want to experience again. So the same thing with, a positive experience. If there was a certain kind of smell or a certain kind of sense of something, like a faintness of something, those are things that, I learned to like try to find more in my development as an artist. I do have many concepts and themes in my work that's related to my childhood and background. And I think, especially relating to the African American side of my family, I always wondered how and why there was a certain type of language and culture that we engaged with inside of the house. And when we left the house, we had a different type of character or nature or connection to society, and we kept them separate. And I never really challenged that. I was always a pleaser, or somebody that wanted to like make my parents and my grandparents really happy, and to do what they wanted to do. I just wanted to be around them because they were amazing and great people. But I never challenged them on why we had to do certain things. But as I got older and I started to understand that if you don't conform yourself to certain situations, then sometimes it's harder to live in those situations long term. I have a lot of influences, and a lot of the influences are ordinary people. And I at a young age, the first country that I lived in Germany, and my family didn't speak German, but I learned German, rural German, from the town that we were living in. And asking questions like, what is this? How, tell me what this is. Asking just strangers from, an early age to describe things for me. Being around just people with good hearts that would take the time to answer a question. That's one of the ways that through my childhood, I really gained knowledge of my world, related to my background and related to the fact that both sides of my family, they were very into the act of performing music, being around all different styles of musics, and being around people that they don't talk at all, but when they play music, they're like, that is their language. So being around people expressing themselves creatively had a very big impact, and it also showed me that I was okay for, wanting to express myself in those ways, or in an art. It allowed me to be able to express myself in an artistic way. James Turrell was one of the first artists that I fell in love with. I really liked artists from the beginning of my career, such as Roy Lichtenstein, and Ruth Asawa. There's a Thai artist named Montien Bonma that I really liked. Basically, with most of the artists that I have followed throughout my career, I like artists that kept or like to keep nature intact and to create a space within nature that allows them to express themselves in a way that of their choosing, and a way that can actually benefit society or society's gaze. So James Turrell was really interesting because he had a volcano, or he has a volcano, and he carved in the middle of that volcano this perfect room, or this perfect dome that created like the perfect sound and the perfect light within the space. And one of the reasons that I really resonated with him was because he, in order to pursue his craft and his art and the story that he wanted to tell, he became a rancher. So he found a way to support his research, and I've always gravitated to people who find ways to support their research. And so that has led me over time to become more of a process based artist. In my work, I'm looking at how to frame a narrative around telling a musical story in a visual language. One of my biggest challenges of being an artist is being able to find enough time in the day to just physically create art. I spend most of my time thinking about my projects and trying to create a time and a space that I have enough energy to actually execute the ideas that I'm thinking. If I were going to talk to my younger self, I would say to listen to myself more, and to know that you might not have the same ideas or visions as other people, and you might not be able to conform, but having patience, and also to even be more driven as a child to be able to learn more, to get there faster, to be more resilient. But basically, I would say to always be strong in your confidence of self. I've studied a lot of different techniques and styles. I have focused my career mostly on doing apprenticeships in different countries. So I started with mural painting, and I find myself now as being a hand embroiderer. So I am unconventional in my materials because I am doing a traditional art, but I'm using my traditional art to tell a very contemporary story relating to the artifacts or the urban artifacts, or the ideas, memories, and culture of a time through a traditional means. So I think that hand embroidery is really interesting because it is very radical in the sense that you can capture the present and find a way to tell a story that will be seen from a perspective of having a past, a middle, and a future. I would like to add that being an embroiderer is also very related to resilience and the people's history or the women's history of the world, and framing a narrative that allows the home and people and a community to be present. I listen to a lot of music. I listen to different types of music at different hours of the day. Generally I listen to probably 10 hours of music a day, and it's not related to mood so much as I look at it as a form of tolerance exercises. Sometimes I don't have the bandwidth or I don't have the space to listen to a different kind of music. I'm not in that frequency of mind. And I try to test out different types of music and see what kind of emotional impact that provides me at a certain time doing a certain skill or a certain thing. And so I find that, for example, like country music. Growing up, I was never a big fan of country music. But once I started learning that country music is a folk music or a story told by a people, opening up my heart to hear the music allowed me to receive the music and to try to find the story that the artist was trying to say. And that created a type of empathy, I believe, for something that was outside of my understanding. So, to answer your question, yes, I listen to a lot of music, but I also listen to speeches, poetry, books. I listen to the rhythm of something and how it moves or flows or creates an idea through sound. I also listen to silence. Silence is a great thing to listen to. As a child, the reaction that a lot of my artwork got was that unfortunately it's too bright, it's going to be hard to sell it or something like that. It was always, people always really liked it, but it just was too much for the majority of people. But as an adult, when I create art, most of the time I just get a wow, or that's beautiful, or something that is very heartfelt. There are two things that I would like people to come back with after seeing or experiencing or being connected with me through art. The first one is, since it's a process-based art, I really encourage other people to have the confidence to see who they are through an art practice. And secondly, to bear witness of a life of art, to see that, I tried the best and I'm trying the best to make our environment a better place in the only way that I know how. So, and just to bring out the beauty in nature and the beauty in us all. My Instagram hashtag is SANTE_art, ARTXSTITCH A-R-T, art. So it's Santé underscore art stitch, which has the X in it, .art. And you can find me at many locations in Philadelphia. I teach volunteer embroidery classes at the Masonic Temple on 1 North Broad, and I also teach and have a gallery at Cherry Street Pier, and also there is a working art space in the Bach Building in Philadelphia. So there are lots of places to find my work, and I love to work with other artists in different mediums and find ways that, you know, we can bridge our talents together to make this a better world. Sending me an email is also like the best way, actually. It's SANTE8 at gmail.com. So it's Santé, the number 8 at gmail.com. And thank you very much for your time. See ya.